The next question we are going to solve is the sixth one. List down the compounded annual growth rate CAGR in four-wheelers units for top 5 makers from 2022 to 2024. First, we will understand what is CAGR. What is CAGR? Let's say you invested 10,000 in the stock market in 2022. In 2024, that investment became 14,400 rupees. Now you want to know how much did my investment grow every year. That's where CAGR comes in. CAGR stands for Compound Annual Growth Rate. It tells you the average yearly growth rate assuming your money grew steadily every year. Even if the real growth was up and down, CAGR shows a smooth average rate like a straight line from 10,000 to 14,000 rupees. Let's say you bought a stock in 2022. It was worth for 10,000 rupees. In 2024, it's worth for 14,000 rupees. That's a 2-year period, right? You want to find at what steady rate did my money grow each year to reach 14,000 from 10,000. That's called CAGR. The math you need to understand. Let's break this down with very basic maths. Step 1, division. How many times did your money grow? We first divide the final amount by the starting amount, that is 14,400 divided by 10,000 equal to 1.44. This means your money grew 1.44 times in total or 44% over 2 years. Step 2, taking the root to find growth per year. Now we want to find the average growth per year, not the total. Since it's 2 year, we take the square root. If it is 3, we will take the cubic root. In our case, 2022 to 2024, it is a 2 year. So we take square root for 1.44 and the answer is 1.2. This means your money grew 1.2 times every single year. Step 3, subtracting with 1. Now we got 1.2 after taking the root. But what does 1.2 really means? It means our money became 1.2 times bigger for every single year. That also includes our original 10,000 rupees we have invested and plus the extra profit we have made. But we only want to know how much extra we earned. So we subtract 1 to remove the original part. Like 1.2 minus 1 equal to 0.2, which means 20%. That 20% is the actual growth, that 20% is the actual growth, that extra part we gained each year. So subtracting 1 helps us to find just the growth rate, not the total. The final CAGR formula is we first divide the end value by the start value, then we take the power of 1 divided by the number of years, and finally we subtract 1. That gives us the average yearly growth rate. Summary is, so to calculate the CAGR, divide the final value by the start value to see how many times your money has grown. Take the root to find how much it grow per year. Then subtract with 1 to remove your original investment and keep only the growth. Then multiply by 100 to get the percentage. That's it. You know how to calculate CAGR like a pro, and even if you are not great at the maths. Now let's implement the CAGR formula in our Power BI project. First we need to find the total EV sales per maker. We have already created this measure earlier, so we will use that directly. Now to calculate CAGR, we need the EV sales value for 2022 and for 2024, our starting value and the ending value. But in our measure, we have all the values 2022, 2023 and also 2024. We only need the starting value and ending value. But how do we get these values from a measure? Usually in Power BI, when you drag and drop visual, it automatically filters the data based on the columns and relationship we have created. This is called the natural filter context. Power BI handles it behind the scenes. But inside a DAX formula, we need to manually tell Power BI which year we want to look at. That's where calculate function comes in. Calculate is one of the most powerful and most used function in DAX. It allows us to change the filter context manually and get the values we want even without dragging any visuals. So here is what we are going to do. We use the calculate formula to get the EV sales for 2022 and 2024, only a start value and end value. And then we apply the CAGR formula and find our compound annual growth rate. I'm going to create a measure called CAGR for makers, and our goal is to find the CAGR for top 5 EV makers, right? We will go step by step. We have this measure called total EV sales per maker. This measure contains all the data, but we only need the data for fiscal year 2022 and 2024 because that is our starting and ending value. To filter the data, I'm going to use the function called calculate. Type calculate. You can use the tab button to select these options. And from this measure, I only need the data for 2022. So type dim date, and from dim date, from the fiscal year column, where the year is 2022, and for that year I need the EV sales value. And do you remember that we have converted this column into a string, a text, so you need to type here a string value, otherwise you will get error. And now close the bracket, and now I'm going to store this answer in a variable called start value. Sorry. And type equal. And now this measure only give the EV sales per makers value for fiscal year 2022, which is our start value, and that will be stored in this variable. And I'm going to create another variable and call it as end value, and again I'm going to use the calculate function, and the expression is total EV sales for makers. From this measure I want to filter the data for fiscal year where the year is 2024, and that is our end year. And now I'm going to find the time period, which is obviously 2, right? And I'm going to store this in a variable called periods, and type 2 because from 2022 to 2024 it is a 2-year period, so I'm typing here 2. And then you want to use a return function. Whenever you use a variable, you need to use the return function, and enter tab. And now what I'm going to do is, by the formula, by a CAGR formula, we want to divide the end value by a start value, right? So open a bracket and type here end value, and see, this is the variable we created, right? So select that and divide it by the start value and close the bracket. And now we want to take root. You can use this up arrow and open bracket, and now 1 divided by the periods, right? 1 divided by the periods, which is 2 in our case. And finally we need to minus it with 1, and you want to use another bracket here. And click enter. And I'm going to use a visual called table and drag and drop the maker in the columns, and then CAGR, the formula we created in the another column. See, this will give us error. This is happening because of our data model. See, we are dividing the end value with start value, right? But what if our start value is 0? In case this sentence written as 0, then we will divide the end value with 0, and in that case we will get error, right? You may ask, why bro this written as 0? This is happening because of data model. What if any of our makers in 2022 their EV sales is 0? If they don't sell anything, then this sentence will return as 0, right? And when we divide it with the end value, we will obviously get 0. So I want to do some modification in this measure. I want, if the start value is greater than 0, then only I want to divide it. If it is not, just show me blank. How can I do it? I am going to use a function called if. Type if, and you don't need this bracket here anymore. Now enter a open bracket, and I want to make a logical test. If the start value is greater than 0 and type comma. If your start value is greater than 0, then only divide, otherwise just show me blank and close the bracket. And this formula will, what this formula will do is, if the start value is greater than 0, if this is greater than 0, then only it will divide the end value with the start value, otherwise it just show me blank. And now click enter, and see, you can see that this measure is working fine, and this is in percentage, right? So click the measure and convert it into percentage, and that's it. And obviously we need to find the EV sales for top 5 EV makers, right? Just remove this visualization and click this and Control C, Control V. See, this visual already filtered by top 5 EV makers. So just click this visual and convert into table and drag and drop the new measure we have created. And you can remove the total EV sales. When I filter by 4-wheelers, now we have got the top 5 EV makers CAGR based on 4-wheeler units. And you can see that BOD India is in first place. Their average CAGR for year is 566%. And that's for this question. And I'm going to create a new two measures for these two columns. For electric vehicles sold and total vehicles sold, I'm going to create a new CAGR formula for these two columns, because it will help us in future videos. Just copy paste this formula and create new measure and name it as CAGR for EV sold by states. And just change this measure into total EV sales per state. And this formula will help us to show the CAGR for total electric vehicles sold by states, and click enter. The next measure is CAGR for total vehicles sold by state. Just paste the formula. Sorry. And change the measure into total sales per state. And click enter, and that's it. And now change this to measure into percentage, and that's it. And now we have tackled our 6th question, and now we can move on to the next one.